Be having treatment, but you're here with us, and we're so excited. I can't wait for you to hear Gary Pinkel today. I think you're going to be super impressed. Really honored to have a guy like that be able to come here. He could choose to go a lot of different places. His first year out of coaching, we're proud to get him here at the Touchdown Club. Did you guys enjoy Jeff Long last week? I thought Jeff did a great job. Sure did. Did anybody see him take the plunge into the water after the soccer team? That may be the greatest thing he ever does at the U of A. For those who don't know, the soccer team, his team won their second upset in the against the top 5 opponent in soccer. So he takes in all his complete suit, takes a running jump into a big, it just splashes, goes about 10 feet, and all the girls really love that. Now next week, do we know who's coming to speak next week? I'm telling you, Coach Pinkel, it's amazing the power of the boss still is out there. Yes, Brian Bosworth. So make sure and bring friends next week because it will be interesting. Want to remind everybody, my buddy Tommy Smith, he is the phone police. He was not happy with the number of phones that went off last week. I think he will throw something at you today if your phone goes off from the back. I do want to remind everybody, before you turn your phone off or put it on mute, you can let everybody know they can go to lrtouchdown.com and hear Coach Pinkel, his entire speech. They can watch it, or you can go to 103.7 The Buzz and listen to Coach's speech there as well. Do want to thank all of you who have become members. If you're not a member, shame on you. Please join up. It's not that expensive. I want to thank our 50-yard line members. Also, if you haven't, upgrade your membership to a National Football Foundation membership or Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame, where you can vote on those. It would really be a big help. Also, official release Rex went out today from the U of A. We made this announcement at the beginning when we announced all of our speakers, but the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame banquet that the Touchdown Club does, they did a formal release today from the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame and the University of Arkansas. Just to let you know, these are the folks that we'll be honoring in November. Quinn Grovey, Dan Hampton, Lee Mayberry, Kevin McReynolds, Frank O'Mara, Joe Falcon, Cliff Powell, R.H. Sykes, and Bev Lewis. So that is a great group of Razorbacks, and go ahead and get your tickets. So yeah, go ahead and give a round of applause for that. If you could, go ahead and make your reservations for that. If you could, buy your tickets now. That's always a fun event. Do want to thank our outstanding sponsors. Let me acknowledge them at this point. Twin City Limousine. If you need any limousine or transportation needs, talk to Dale Bennett over at Twin City Limo. We appreciate their support. CJRW, Dan Sawyer, Darren Gray here today, the CEO. That's 2 weeks in a row. They're doing some really neat things with the Cliff Harris Award that will help us promote Cliff and the award across the country. We appreciate them. And there's new sports media training department that Harry King wrote a nice article about last week. Thank you, CJRW, for your support of the Touchdown Club. LRCVB, Credit Hall, David Russell. We're proud to be called the Little Rock Touchdown Club. Thank you to them. 103.7 The Buzz. I know, Coach, you made a great impression on Justin Aker and Pat Bradley out there. We get to interview our speakers every week. And, of course, Epic also sponsors that. We want to thank 103.7 The Buzz. War Memorial Stadium. We want to acknowledge them for their sponsorship. Have you heard the kickoff time has been set, just announced, for the Alcorn State game? It's going to be an early morning of tailgating. All right, you know what it is? 11 o'clock, yes. 11 o'clock. That means the
tailgate after.
Tailgate after, yes. Does that mean the gate will be open like at the golf course at 5 in the morning?
Yes.
So do want to remind also UAPB and Jacksonville State is this week, Rex. Thank you. Yeah. So also tickets are on sale for the Alcorn State game October 1st, $35. I don't know if there's any tailgating spots still open, but make sure and attend that game. If we win this week, we want a full house there. I don't care if it is 11 o'clock. We want a full house there at War Memorial. Do want to thank Epic Health for their sponsorship. Go by and get your free test, guys. It's worth $1,600. It could save your lives. We want to recognize our civil servant who is here today, courtesy of Epic. He's at MIMS. It's Byron Pierce. Where's Byron? Please stand, Byron. There's a MIMS man right there. Thank you for what you do in the community. Farm Bureau of Pulaski County. Great to have Todd Dennis here. And Todd, it's great to have you 2 years in a row as our sponsor. Make sure and give Todd a chance to quote you on commercial, home, residential, whatever. But it's great to have you here. Farm Bureau of Pulaski County. Normally you have a whole crew with you, but you're the lead man today. So great to have you here, Todd. Wendy's Dan Trammell. I got a chance to show Coach Pinkel the Dan Hampton Award. And today is Dan's birthday. And he wanted to say thank you to the Little Rock Touchdown Club for what we're doing in his name and Willie Rofe too. And Nan has been so helpful with that at Wendy's for the last 4 years now. And so thank you at Wendy's at Nan Trammell. And I know Dan had to look forward to getting him back here in a few months. Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, last week I mentioned intellectual property and their expertise in copyright and trademark type of issues. If you have any issues in regard to real estate, corporate law, any kind of transactions, mergers, acquisitions, they are great to deal with. They have expertise in that. Give them a call. I'm working with them right now. I've been with them for a couple years now on this case I've been working on. We're going to win. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we're going to get it. And so thankful for Judy Henry for her support. But if your business is expanding, real estate acquisition, sometimes it takes time in life, y'all. Rome wasn't built in a day. At some point, before I die, we're going to win this case. I'm just telling you. It's going to happen. But call Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings for all your legal needs, especially in terms of real estate and corporate affairs. See, Drew Dees is back here from Crane Automotive. Great to have you, Drew, and appreciate you guys supporting us. And they also support the Northwest Arkansas Touchdown Club. They employ 800 employees from Arkansas. So, Drew, thank you so much for your support. And Larry, go by and get you a great deal at a Crane Automotive dealership, whether it be here or in Northwest Arkansas. Thank you to them. The Democrat Gazette, Amanda Copley, Wally Hall will be announcing our Player of the Week here in just a minute, but we thank you for their support. And Simmons Bank, great to have Chris White back. Chris, I guess you've just replaced George. Adam, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think we just have to say, he's gone. Is he like Tom Brady, out for 4 games? Is that what it is with the suspension? Is that it? Great, he'll be back. Great to have Adam Mitchell and George Macris. And y'all, I was just telling Coach, we couldn't do what we do without all of the sponsor supports, but especially Simmons Bank. So please give them a chance to give them some of your business. They're excellent to work with. I'm proud to be a customer and have for a long time. Let's give a round of applause to Simmons and all of our great sponsors here today. We got the best hotel in Arkansas here, the Embassy Suites. Thank you to all the folks here that help us out. Matt Johnson, who has been doing our live stream, and Fidelity Live 6 is who Matt works with. And I want to let you know that they have, that's a channel that you can find in Benton, Bryant, and Maumelle. And Coach, also apparently they're in markets in Missouri. And so they're going to see you in Missouri with this speech today, too, in addition to our live streamed high definition broadcast. But thank you, Matt, for your work each week. We really appreciate it. Dwayne Duncan taking photos right here to my left does a great job for us. RJ Hawk Media Solutions. Just to remind everybody, it's at LR Touchdown Club if you want to tweet out anything today. LRTouchdown.com is our website, and hashtag LRTDC. So if you can, go ahead and tweet some things out today, and just make sure your phone is on mute if it rings today. That's all you got to do. But thank you, RJ, for your work with social media. And amazing check-in ladies. Thank you so much, ladies, back in the back. We appreciate you helping out every week. Debbie Wyman does a great job for us. Hey, Debbie's actually in the room today. Let's give a round of applause for Debbie, which is very rarely ever here. And Rex has got to do a recap, and then he's got to go speak somewhere else up in Heber Springs. So it'll be a recap, and then Rex is out the door. Let's get up for Rex Nelson, everybody.
Thanks, David. Yeah, Coach, I apologize. I'll be listening to you on the radio as I drive over there that I have to leave. I guess this is a drive-by recap. I'm going to come in, take a few pot shots at everybody, and then I'm going to leave. So that's what it is. How about those Razorbacks at 3-0, though? First time since 2013. 42-3 in what was basically a scrimmage over my wife's alma mater. The Razorbacks outgained the Bobcats 467-105 on the ground. Listen to the difference on the ground. 226 yards rushing for Arkansas, just 22 for Texas State. Arkansas has now scored, did you know this, 40 or more points in 8 of its past 10 games. Pretty impressive right there. Another impressive stat. Brett Bielema is now 39-4 as a head coach in regular season non-conference games. 39-4. Arkansas is now 24-1 against schools currently in the Sun Belt Conference. there was that one loss, and that was to Louisiana Monroe, you remember, right here in Little Rock. It was that guy who thought he was coaching at Alabama, if you'll remember that year, that was the coach here at the Touchdown Club. 24-1, though, against Sun Belt teams. Texas State falls to 0-5 against SEC teams. So now it's on to Arlington, on to Jerry World, and the undefeated Aggies late Saturday night. Elsewhere in the SEC, how about that Alabama-Ole Miss game? What a game. 48-43 tied. They end a 2-game losing streak to the Rebels. Ole Miss falls to 1-2 overall, but they're still in the top 25. They took a 24-3 lead with just 2:47 left in the first half, but Alabama comes back quickly, scores 14 points before halftime. The Tide eventually leads by 18 points, 48-30, before almost blowing it at the end. So Alabama remains number one and undefeated. LSU goes to 2-1 overall, 1-0 in the conference, 23-20 over Mississippi State, which falls to 1-2 overall, 1-1 in conference. Tigers did give up touchdowns with 4:10 left and 3:30 left in the game to really make it look closer than it was. Leonard Fournette, 147 yards for the Tigers after sitting out the previous week. Texas A&M, Saturday night's opponent, 3-0 as they go to Auburn and come away with a 29-16 victory. And maybe Gus Malzahn's seat's getting a little hot over there. 29-16 Aggies. Auburn falls to 1-2 overall, 0-1 in the conference. Aggies had 478 yards of offense. Trevor Knight, who you'll see a lot of Saturday, passed for 247 yards in that game. Georgia is 3-0. Overall, 1-0 in conference, but they haven't looked very good getting to that point. 28-27, a heartbreaker, coach, for Missouri and Columbia as the Tigers fall to 1-2, 0-1. Georgia scores on a 20-yard pass play with just a minute 31 to play to get the win. Tigers were driving for what could have been the winning field goal and then had a turnover at the end. Very exciting game there. Florida also 3-0, 32-0 over North Texas. Now that one got ugly. Quarterback Luke Del Rio was injured late in the third quarter. Coach Jim McElwain went out on the field and then started yelling at the North Texas sideline. I don't know if you saw clips of this, thinking it was a cheap shot. Had to be restrained by his players and by the officials. Both teams went out to about the hash marks, but luckily no brawl ever broke out. Florida 3-0. Tennessee also 3-0, but they're kind of struggling to get there also. They beat Ohio in Knoxville only 28-19. They have now won 9 consecutive games, but they do have a number of key injuries, you should note, as they go into the Florida game on Saturday. Georgia Tech's 3-0. They dropped Vanderbilt to 1-2, 38-7 in Atlanta. Georgia Tech is now 12-0-1 against Vanderbilt since 1941, so they haven't lost to Vandy since before World War II. Kentucky finally wins one. They're 1-2, 62-42 over New Mexico State. That game was tied 35-35 at halftime. Kentucky had lost its first 2 games to open a season for the first time in 20 years. South Carolina's 2-1, 20-15 over East Carolina. They had a freshman quarterback that started and played the entire game. His name's Brandon McElwain. Got his first start in the win for South Carolina. In Arkansas action, UCA 2-1 overall, 2-0 in the conference after a 24-10 win over a 4-3 team, Northwestern, or an 0-3 team, Northwestern State out of Natchitoches, Louisiana. Bears had 227 yards on the ground. They had a 9-minute advantage in time of possession. Antoine Wells leads the Bears with 129 yards on 25 carries. They go to Jonesboro to take on Arkansas State there on Saturday night. That should be interesting. All right, in the GAC, Henderson and Harding are the only 2 3-0 teams left in the Great American Conference. Reddies roll 62-23 over 1-2 Northwestern Oklahoma in a game played at Arkadelphia. That one was 31-0 before Northwestern even got its first down in the game. Harding, meanwhile, dropped Southern Arkansas to 2-1, 35-14 Bisons and Searcy. Bisons finished with 459 209 yards. Get this, they're the second leading rushing team in Division II. 385 of that came on the ground. SAU had just 275 yards of total offense. Washita's 2-1, 48-28 over Southwestern Oklahoma in Arkadelphia. Their junior quarterback out of Malvern, Austin Warford, rushed for 144 yards. He was 16 of 22 passing for 268 yards. He's the leading rusher in the conference after 3 weeks. Arkansas Tech also 2-1, following a 38-31 win in Russellville over 1-2 UAM. Tech quarterback Ty Reisner threw for 330 yards and 2 TDs. And in NAIA play, Lyon College wins its first game since reinstituting football last year. Scots are 1-3, but they posted a big 63-26 victory over Northland College of Illinois. Now, there were Thursday and Friday night games that you probably watched. On Friday night, Arkansas State fell to 0-3, 34-20 loss to Utah State in Logan, Utah. Utah State, which plays in the Mountain West, is now 2-1. Utah State jumped to a 17-0 lead in the first quarter. It was 24-0 by halftime. Red Wolves tried to come back, but it was too little, too late. 354 yards of offense, but also for Arkansas State, 18 penalties for 129 yards. And then on Thursday night, actually stayed up late for this one, an 0-2 UAPB team went to Lorman, Mississippi to take on the defending SWAC champions from Alcorn State, which comes here to War Memorial Stadium, as we were just talking about. The Golden Lions were down by 16 points with 5:55 left on the clock. They scored 2 touchdowns. They convert 2 two-point conversions in that last 5:55 to tie the game. They go on to win it 45-43 in 3 overtimes. Brandon Duncan passes for 505 yards for UAPB. And again, they are out at War Memorial Stadium this Saturday afternoon, and both bands are going to be there. That's important in the SWAC games. Both bands, I'm told by Kevin Crass, will be there, so you'll want to be there for that. All right, we got Kent State at Alabama this week. We've got LSU at Auburn. We've got Florida at Tennessee. How many of you like Florida to go into Knoxville and win that game? Just curious. Tennessee? Tennessee's kind of struggled, as I said, to get to 3-0. You've got Georgia at Ole Miss. You've got South Carolina at Kentucky. You've got Mississippi State at Massachusetts. You've got Delaware State at Missouri, Vanderbilt at Western Kentucky, and, of course, in Arlington, Texas A&M and Arkansas. Be honest, anybody picking the Aggies? Very small. Arkansas. All right. That one will be over about midnight on Saturday night, so you know. Here in the state, again, you've got UCA at ASU, Jackson State versus UAPB at War Memorial, Harding at UAM, Arkansas Tech at SAU. So games in Jonesboro, Little Rock, Monticello, and Magnolia. Get out and see a college football game. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, my gosh.
That's what I'm saying. I got you. We'll pray before.
Thank you, Rex. You know, 2 weeks ago, I was up, I covered the Razorbacks for 103.7 The Buzz and KETV Channel 7. 2 weeks ago, I ran out of gas while idling between live shots. Last week, I forgot my phone in my hotel room during the whole game and could not communicate with anybody. And today, what did I do? Forgot the prayer. Oh, my gosh. Gary, that would have been a disaster if we had not prayed. So, Gary Underwood, would you come up and bless the food that we have already eaten? Thank you.
I started to be a replay official and just stop the game, during the kick. Now, we missed the prayer, the invocation at the beginning, okay? But we are not going to miss the most important part of any worship service or any game, any meeting that we have, and that's the offering. So if you missed Jeff last week, Big Red and Boss Hog will be at the door to get your collection as you leave. All right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity for us to gather together, enjoy each other's fellowship, hear a great speaker. Lord, we ask you to use us today to serve you in every way possible. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Gary. I feel better now. It is time for our All Arkansas Preps Player of the Week, presented by the Democrat Gazette. He is Sylvan Hills senior quarterback Jordan Washington, who 2 weeks ago completed 16 passes, which doesn't sound like a lot to you realize, for 299 yards, 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 38 yards and a touchdown in a 28-27 win over Lakeside this past weekend, last Friday night. 260 yards on 13 completions, so his completion average, per completion average, is pretty impressive. He is a good-looking kid. He's 6'2". I'm not sure where he's going to be playing his college football, but he will be playing on Saturday somewhere next year. Let's give a Little Rock Touchdown Club welcome to Jordan Washington. Do want to recognize his coach, Jim Withrow, who's here today, head coach of Sylvan Hills. Jim, great to have you. His dad, Corey, and his mom, LaQuinta, thank you so much for being here. He's a fine young man, good-looking young man. And I asked his dad where he was going to school, and I'm sure this didn't come out, Rod. He said, whoever pays him the most. And I said, no. I said, he meant to say whichever scholarship pays him the most is what he was saying. Yeah. I did want to say, too, real quick, I mentioned the Dan Hampton Award. Dan Hampton's birthday is today, and I mentioned Wendy's has been the major sponsor for 3 years. But Mike Erie, who's an old teammate of mine and teammate of Dan, his wife comes to all the Touchdown Club meetings, Deanne Richards. I want to mention he's fighting cancer. It's throat cancer, right, Deanne? Is that the right? Throat cancer. So if you say a prayer today, include Mike Erie. Mike stepped up and cut a big check to help us get this initial trophy done this past year. And so from now on, the trophy won't be as expensive, but I wanted to mention that we're praying for Mike, and he's a great guy. Coach, you know, those offensive linemen are crazy. And Mike Erie was one of those crazy ones, but love the guy. And Deanne, our thoughts and prayers are with him. I know he's going to whip that cancer. Before I bring up Jim Rasko to introduce Coach Pinkel, I did want to say real quick, one of the reasons Coach Pinkel is here is because I reached out and asked him if he would be on the Broyles Award Selection Committee this year. You know, he couldn't do it as a sitting coach. And I wanted to put up who, for the last 20 years, the coaches have been for the selection committee. Bobby Bowden, Vince Dooley, Barry Switzer, Hayden Fry, Lavelle Edwards, Grant Taft, Johnny Majors, Mac Brown, Philip Fulmer. So that's been the selection committee. There were 3 guys that have passed away that were on that committee: Bo Schembeckler, Darrell Royal, and Don James. Well, Don James was Gary's coach for many, many years, and he was assistant under Don James. One of the true class acts when I would have any kind of conversation with Coach James. I mean, just a great human being and a great football coach. What he did at Washington was unreal. So we expanded the committee this year, and we have Lou Holtz, John Robertson, R.C. Slocum, Mike Bellotti, Jim Donnan, Pat Dye, Frank Beamer, and, of course, Gary Pinkel. And of those 18 guys, 15 are in the College Football Hall of Fame. The other 3 will be, including Gary Pinkel, at some point. When you hear Jim Rasko's introduction of Coach, you'll understand why he belongs on the Broyles Award Selection Committee. He's also had 2 finalists, Dave Christensen and Dave Steckel, Dave is the head coach at Missouri State right now. But Coach, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the Broyles Selection Committee. He knows he was assistant coach for many years, and as we mentioned, here's the trophy down here. Is that we do 2 things with the Broyles Award. We honor a great guy and Coach Broyles and what his legacy means. And we also honor the backbone of college football coaching and really pro coaching, any kind of football, and that's the assistant coach. So, Gary, I want to thank you for being here today and for being on this committee. And at this time, to give an introduction like no one else, please welcome Jim Rasko, everybody.
Thank you, David. Our guest, Gary Pinkel, is a native of Akron, Ohio, where he played his high school football for the Kenmore Cardinals. Now, I have the documentation, but I don't have the time to tell you about all the touchdown passes he caught from his quarterback, Eric Schock. And then, as David said, Gary played his college football at Kent State for Hall of Fame coach Don James. While at Kent State, one of Gary's teammates was a little defensive back from West Virginia. All of you have heard of him. His name is Nick Saban. You've all heard about his roommate, Pro Football Hall of Famer Jack Lambert, who managed to pick up 4 Super Bowl rings with the Pittsburgh Steelers. As a junior on November the 11th, 1972, Pinkel caught 2 touchdown passes in the span of 45 seconds to lead the Golden Flashes to a 21-10 victory over Miami and propel Kent State to its first conference championship in 22 years. Then in the Tangerine Bowl game against Tampa, he caught 5 passes. At the end of the 1972 season, Kent State had 2 players named to the all-conference first team. They were both unanimous choices: 6'2", 217-pound Gary Pinkel at tight end and Jack Lambert at middle linebacker. Both players received honorable mention All-America. As seniors in 1973, both Pinkel and Lambert repeated as all-conference selections and honorable mention All-America, and Gary was named to play in the Ohio Shrine Bowl. Pinkel caught 85 passes during his college career, which set the Kent State school record. On February 6, 1974, Pinkel was drafted by Toronto of the new World Football League, but he passed up the WFL to sign as a free agent with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who of course had drafted his teammate Jack Lambert. I found a write-up of one of the Steelers' first exhibition games, and Pinkel caught a 30-yard pass to set up the Steelers' first touchdown against the Saints. He caught another pass in the game, but the Steelers did not score after that one. In late August, though he was listed as the second-team tight end behind Randy Grossman, Pinkel decided to hang up his cleats and become a graduate assistant at his alma mater. This started 42 consecutive years as a college coach, including the last 25 as a head coach. And the rest is history. On March 20th, 1991, Gary was named as the new head coach at Toledo, replacing Nick Saban, who had resigned to be the new defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. In 1995, Gary's Toledo Rockets finished as one of the 3 undefeated teams in major college football. They won the MAC Conference title, they won the Las Vegas Bowl, and Coach Pinkel was named Coach of the Year for the MAC Conference. On September the 2nd, 2000, Coach Pinkel took his final Toledo team to play Joe Paterno's Nittany Lions at Penn State. Final score, Toledo 24, Penn State 6. Toledo picked up another MAC Conference title and finished 10-1. After 10 successful seasons at Toledo, Gary was hired to take over as head coach of the Missouri Tigers, a program that had had just 2 winning seasons in the previous 17 years. By his 3rd season, he had the Tigers in the Independence Bowl, losing 27-14 to our Razorbacks. Oh, but he'll get his revenge. On November 24, 2007, Missouri defeated rival Kansas 36-28 in a nationally televised game at Arrowhead Stadium. The win propelled Missouri to number 1 national ranking and ruined Kansas' previously unbeaten record. Then, after being tied at halftime in the Big 12 championship game, Missouri lost to Oklahoma, but ended the season ranked number 4 in the nation after defeating Arkansas 38-7 in the Cotton Bowl. After the Tigers played in 7 consecutive bowl games as a member of the Big 12, Missouri joined the Eastern Division of the SEC for the 2012 season. In 2013, the Tigers won the East and beat Oklahoma State 41-31 in the Cotton Bowl, finished the season with a record of 12-2 and ranked number 5 in the nation. Missouri repeated again in 2014, winning the Eastern Division again and defeating Minnesota 33-17 in the Citrus Bowl. In summary, when Coach retired after the 2015 season, he was the 20th winningest coach in college football history. He's the winningest coach at 2 major college football programs, Toledo and Missouri. The only other coaches to hold that distinction are Bear Bryant at Kentucky and Alabama and Steve Spurrier. He was Coach of the Year in the MAC, in the Big 12, and in the SEC. He's been inducted into 6 Hall of Fame. Please welcome Coach Gary Pinkel.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. I guarantee that's the last time you'll ever stand for a Missouri guy. I guarantee you that. This whole thing's kind of interesting. We were talking, the rivalry I would expect, I hope the rivalry gets really like competitive hatred, there's a fine line there, but that it's that kind of a game, and I think it will be someday. And that means this is the last time you'll ever see a Missouri guy stand up here forever. Because number 1, I won't want to come, and number 2, you won't want me here, okay? Kansas is our rival in the Big 12. It started in the early 1900s, and it went on and on and on. And Lawrence, if they called me and asked me to come over and speak in Lawrence right now, Well, first of all, they wouldn't do that either. I wouldn't go either. So we'll see what happens. I visited Hot Springs, Arkansas. Went through the Ozark Mountains with about 15 other guys on motorcycles in May. Just got a good time and clipped through part of Little Rock here, and so a beautiful, beautiful country. Don't think that Missouri people have to come to Arkansas to enjoy themselves. That had nothing to do with it, okay? I did it just because, obviously it's a very, very beautiful place. So thanks for having me here. I really appreciate that. A couple things there. First of all, this where you come up with all that stuff. I mean, I forgot I even played high school and college football. So, but certainly, first of all, I want to mention Arkansas and Brett. He's a good friend of mine. Did a remarkable job at Arkansas. And I think that he's really, last year was, I saw him after season last year, and they beat us the last game. I went up to him and I said, it's one of the great jobs of coaching ever. We all get tested in this business, and most of it, unfortunately, you don't pass the test a lot. And when you're really down and out, and, they lost those several games in a row, and it was very dismal. And I know you weren't the most happy people in America either out there, okay? But what he did to come back like that ultimately in our business, you have to do those things to survive and get to greatness. And he did an absolutely great job last year of coaching as he is. He's a great coach, cares about kids, cares about people. And certainly this year they've got a great start going. They got a big game this week at Texas A&M. So he's a friend of mine. He's a great coach, and I think you realize that you got somebody special here. And he did not call me up and tell me to say that, okay? He texts me. So that's the difference. We just hired a new coach, Barry Odom. Barry Odom was a coach for me. He was a defensive coordinator at Memphis. I pushed really hard to get him because he's the right guy. He played at Missouri. He was in a high school when I first got there about 15 years ago. He was coaching a high school, and just a very, very special guy, and I think a guy that will do a great job building our program also. And I feel very good about that. A tough loss to Georgia the other night, and certainly that's something that he's learned to live with those things. When I see some of the scores, in some of those games, I see Iowa get beat, I'm saying, boy, I'm glad I'm not coaching anymore. It's really interesting as you were in that fire all the time in your life, and for the first time out of it. Okay, our record here against Arkansas, 2003, we just talked about that. The Independence Bowl got after us pretty good right there. That was a big bowl for us because that was our first bowl. We got started the program in 2001, so that was a big bowl for us to be in that, and you guys just played better and did a great job. So that was that. 2007, we talked about the Cotton Bowl. You're having a coaching change at that time. Tony Temple broke the Cotton Bowl record in that particular game, and so we were very fortunate then. In 2014, the first time we played, for the award that the heaviest trophy in the world, that if you pick it up you blow your back out. We had a great game there in 2007, and fortunately we won that game in the Cotton Bowl, and then again the championship game. We played our first game we played, and we had to win that game in 2014 to win the championship in the East, and we were fortunate to win that game in Columbia. Then last year you guys got after us pretty good, and so it should be a great rivalry, and I think it'll get heated up as we go, and I think 10-15 years from now it'll be nice and toasty like it should be as we talk about it. I also being invited on the Broyles. I know Coach Broyles. I met him before through Coach James. I think Coach Schembechler, Coach Broyles, Coach James, and Coach Paterno were having lunch at a convention. And I think I was like, I don't know how old I was, but I was a really young coach. And Coach says, hey, why don't you join us? So I'm sitting there with those guys, and I'm just going, wow. I read every book that they've ever written. I always read to make myself better and so on and so forth. But, that's just those things was really important to me. And he did so much for college football. I mean, he was a trendsetter. He was a man of character and did the right things, and certainly very, very appreciative and very honored to be a part of that committee. And I think I expressed that to you when that phone call came. That meant an awful lot to me. Get the elephant out of the room. I was diagnosed with cancer last year in April. Actually, it was on my birthday. And that was a nice meeting with the doctor on your birthday and finding out that you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I got treatment right away, and actually within the next 3 weeks I got mono treatment, and my body's adjusted well to it. My last tests have been good, but you always have the kind of lymphoma I have, you always have. Most lymphomas are like that. You can't cure it. And, I might have to get treatment in 6 months. I might not have to get treatment for 15 years. My body, again, reacted to the one treatment that I had really well. So anyway, I'm doing well. I've been blessed in so many ways. And, I had to make a decision last year, and my decision was I wanted to de-stress my life, and I wanted to make sure I spent some more time with my family. I got 8 grandkids, and just certainly I just had to adjust, and I feel very, very good that I did it. It was, I think what happens is, I think when you go through something like that, it's obviously very alarming. We talked about someone's husband or somebody that's struggling. God bless, you're all on the same team there. I had somebody I was at an event the other night down at Lake of the Ozarks, and a Stan Musial event that they have there, and a gal came up to me, and she had cancer. She had lung cancer, never smoked a day in her life. Just very unusual cancer. It's one of those things, but you're on the team. When it happens, you're on the team. And the great thing about it is the remarkable things they're doing in this country at the different hospitals. I hear that we have the hospital here in Little Rock is also a specialty in certain types of cancer. They're doing better than they've ever done. So we're all in this together, and everybody in here knows somebody, whether it's in the family or somebody, it's got cancer. And so a lot of great things have happened in terms of that. But I want to let you know that right now. So I had to downshift my life. I had no plan for this. Someone said, I just signed a 6-year contract last year. So I plan on, coaching for 6 more years at least. And so, all of a sudden I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm out. So I had to really downshift my life. I was really, as a head football coach, you don't sleep very well at all. Even when you win, you don't sleep. You lose, you don't sleep. Just don't sleep very much. It's part of the deal. And it's really an adjustment on you. And so, now what I'm doing, people ask what I'm doing. I got a contract with the university. I'm doing some public relations, some fundraising. I've had several talks, probably half a dozen for leadership and teamwork that I'm doing to businesses and corporations. So I'm doing that. I'm writing a book and trying to get another one published here. So I'm doing a lot of different things, and with zero stress. And it's kind of nice now that I'm out of it. I look back at it and say, were you nuts? And I was head coach 25 years, 10 there and 15. And for a Division I coach, it's about 6.5 years longevity. So I did it for 25 years. And so I'm glad I did what I did. And it was been of adjust. People ask what the adjustment was. Well, our first game we play at West Virginia, and I wake up, it's 11:30 game. I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I jump out of bed, and my wife's looking at me and go, what's wrong with you? And I said, nothing. I'm fine. I'm going to go to the store. It's like I was, and obviously I was, struggling a little bit with it. I'd been coaching or playing football and coaching for 55 straight years of my life. 55 straight years. I'm not used to waking up on a Saturday morning in September and going out and sitting and have a cup of coffee out in the back. That didn't happen. So that was an adjustment for me, and it really was. But for me, I think the thing that is the best describes it is I miss my players. I miss hugging them. I miss taking care of them. I miss being mad at them. Because I'm helping them become better. There's a lot more than winning football games. You got to win enough games to help kids, but bottom line, graduation, making them better people, those kind of things, and helping them be better. That was hugely important, and that's important. And the other thing I'll do is I'll miss game day. I'll miss when I was on the sideline, not all the anxiety and how you feel all the way up to it, but when I'm on the sideline, I put my headset on, and the referee goes like this in the end zone. It's game time. I went in a zone. We have big cannons go off when we score points. I never heard that cannon one time, 15 years, not one time. And people just look at me like I'm nuts, but I haven't. I loved game day. Now the stuff before and afterwards, I don't miss. I'm kind of glad I'm out of it in terms of that. So the West Virginia game comes up. It's an away game. So my wife brings a bunch of people over just to kind of sit around and kind of keep it light a little bit, so I don't sit in a room like this and watch the game. And she says, I'll go buy you a headset. We'll cut it off here. There won't be any wire, and I'll get you a visor, and you can just walk around the whole game sitting there watching the deal. So, she thought that was funny too. She thought that was really, really funny. So the next week we had our first home game, and everybody talked to me, you're going to stop by a tailgate. I've never tailgated. I've never tailgated in my life. I have no idea. And that was really odd for me. I mean, seeing people, and then I felt bad because, not feel bad, I feel kind of, I was misled and people didn't care about me. All these people having this great time out there, and I'm in the state of my life on the line, warming our team up. It did not make much sense, okay? So I try to figure that out a little bit, and so I'm dealing with all this stuff. A little bit personal things about me, a little bit. I got 3 kids. They're all 3 married. And I have 8 grandkids. I think I mentioned that before. They all live in the state of Missouri, so I've been very, very blessed. I got married in June of last year in Naples, and to a lovely lady, and she has 2 teenagers. Now you got to understand, I'm home a lot now. Okay, with my kids, I wasn't home a lot because, honestly, it's not real. Our coaches put so much time in. But I'm home a lot now, and so I'm around her 2 teenagers, 17 and 13, and they're like driving me nuts. And so I was in denial before, so I'm thinking, well, I've raised 2 kids. I mean, three teenagers. I've been here before, and I've been thinking about week after week after week. And then after a while, I was thinking I had like to come to Jesus meeting very seriously. That I wasn't around my kids very much. I wasn't. And so these 2 kids that were driving me, I'd never really been through it before. Now they're still driving me nuts. But that's what the one thing about this job. It's really, and one thing we're doing great for the assistant coach award. The wives do so much, man. It's just you're gone an awful lot, and I didn't really realize it until I backed away and looked at it. I wasn't home very much, and my kids are great. They said, Dad, anytime you had a chance to get home, you were home, and I was. I went to have drinks with my buddies or play golf. I never did that. I always went home all the time. And so there's a lot of good things too, but at the end of the day, that's I just kind of realized that. So I'm kind of unloading my personal problems on you, so you understand that as I get treatment next year in my head. How did I get in coaching? I grew up in Akron, Ohio, real quick. You did. I probably don't have to say half these things. You touched on them real quick. By the way, I'm a big Cleveland Cavaliers fan. Okay, LeBron and I, great athletes out of Akron, come there. My wife and I, which I could have never done before, my wife and I flew in. I got tickets to the Game 3 in Cleveland. So we got in Columbia, got in St. Louis, and we flew in, and it was awesome. They won that game, then they lost the next, and they had to win the last 3 to win. So I'm running around Columbia. I was out in Sonoma and out in San Francisco too, and I was wearing my Cavalier shirts around, because they beat Golden State, and I was just excited and happy. So anyway, I have shout out to LeBron James, okay, for making me happy. I grew up a lot different than most of my players. Most of my student athletes don't have I'd say have, I don't know what the number would be, but don't have a family situation like I grew up. I had a mom and dad that loved me and took care of me, and a lot of times we don't see that now, and that's also then puts a responsibility back on me, which is a different story. But at the end of the day, I was very, very fortunate. The golden rule, values, scouts, trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, all those things were taught daily in my house. And that was being respectful to people and other people. Mom, Dad made us go to church. We didn't want to go, but obviously from my standpoint, it was hugely important in my life. My brother and sister have a disease called hereditary spastic paraplegia. My brother passed away. He's 5 years younger. My sister's 3 years older. And what's this? It's a disease where you lose your ability, the type that they have. You lose your ability to walk when you reach adolescence. Okay, so my sister's older than me. She gets the disease. I don't get it. We don't think it's hereditary. I don't get it. Then all of a sudden, my brother is playing great basketball when he's in 6th grade, 7th grade. Then all of a sudden, he's starting to stumble around a little bit, and he ended up getting the same disease. So those two, my parents had a lot going through with that whole thing, and now obviously that whole thing was a huge impact on my life, and all these values that I'm talking about, those kind of things, is certainly I make a lot of mistakes myself, and not close to perfect, but I try to really help our players do these things. I mean, I have a thing. One football season, I did a couple different things, but the one particular time, it was fatherly advice. I just made it up. Okay, in the first part of our Thursday meetings, before we play Arkansas, for example, the last game of the year, it'd be maybe taking a lady on a date, and how respectful you are to a lady, and it's about all different types of things that did on values and being honest and having high integrity and treating people right and things like that. And I did that part of my talk And then we talked about the game. And the point was I wanted to make it that it was as important as football that I cared about them. And that's something that I started doing my last 3 years because I felt I had to do more to help my kids than I was doing. Okay, so that's my family background. High school, Dick Fortner right now. We win the first time in 27 years we win a high school championship. When I was playing football for Dick Fortner, I went to college thinking I want to coach high school football. He had that big influence on me. And so that was huge. So then I was asked to speak at his memorial service in September 2012. They flew me in on a Monday or Tuesday, and I got a chance to flew me from Columbia into Akron so I could be at his memorial service, but he had a huge impact on my life. Kent State, Don James, we talked about Don James and his bio real quick. Kent State wins a championship, first time in the history of the school, and two other winning seasons. He goes to Washington. I think it was 5 or 6 Rose Bowls, national championship. I came the head coach at Toledo in 2001. They won the national championship, and he sent me a ring, which was kind of cool, because I'd left, and he sent me a ring. But Don James has had really high integrity, first class man. I programmed, and I think Nick Saban took a lot of things from Don also, without question, and he just had a huge impact on me. I mean, he changed my life in his role. In 2013 October, we were playing South Carolina. We were in overtime. And our kicker hit the goal post, and we lost that football game. That was the first game we lost that year. And that next Sunday morning, I flew out. They flew me to Seattle, and I was asked to speak at Coach James' memorial service there too, which meant a lot to me. And I was telling some people on the radio today, Coach James, I called him a week before, and he didn't get back to me. And all of a sudden, about 4 or 5 days before he passed away, my secretary goes in. He walks in my office. She goes, "Coach James is on the phone," and I was like numb, because I knew I was getting reports all the time. So he handed me the phone, and I got tears in my eyes, and I thanked him so much for calling me and thinking about me. I could tell him how much I loved him, how much I cared, how much impact he had on my life and thousands of other guys that he coached. It was so much bigger than just winning football games, and so that was a very, very special time for me that I could do that. And I'm just trying to explain the impact that a coach can have on his players and his kids, and so I was certainly honored to do that. On our team was Jack Lambert, and Nick Saban, and we had some other guys playing in the NFL right now. We just, Coach James came in and got rid of all the guys that didn't want to win and didn't want to compete, and we just won the first championship in the history of the school. We played in the Tangerine Bowl, and had a good run there. And so then after that, I'm thinking about getting coaching, and I remember Nick Saban and I we were up in the library. We were watching the freshman study table, and we just watched him study, made sure they didn't get in any trouble. So we're sitting there talking, and we're both talking about coaching. I think he's 23, I'm 22. He looks a lot older than me. I think you know that. And we were just talking about coaching, and his dad had a car dealership, and he kind of felt obligated to go back. He talked to Coach James. Coach James said, "Hey, give it a try, see if your family will wait." And I think you read about that. And then just to think, we're sitting there talking about being football coaches, college football coaches, and things that we talk to other people about. And at the end of the day, obviously, the remarkable success he has, and I've had a pretty good run myself. So it's a pretty neat thing that happened to him. So I was 2 years as head coach, or excuse me, assistant coach at Bowling Green, and I was 12 years at Washington. I was coached the wide receivers my first 5, and I coached the quarterbacks and offensive coordinator my last 7 years. Okay, so I loved coaching quarterbacks. I don't think I was a great play caller. Okay, for example, we talk about Bosworth when Boz is here next week. We played in the 1985 Orange Bowl. Okay, and I was a first-year coordinator. I called the plays in that game. We won the game. One of the reasons we won the game is because the Sooner Schooner came out on the field, and they said if it comes out one more time, they're going to call a penalty. Well, it was a third down play. We didn't get the third down, but Sooner Schooner comes out on the field. They called a penalty, kept drive live. We scored. We ended up winning the game. Now, but you tell Boz, we don't want any excuses. I'm not going to tell him. You can tell him. Okay, you can tell him. But that was I had a really good run there with Coach James. 11 bowls in 12 years, and Orange Bowl, 3 Rose Bowls when I was there, and I learned how to be a head football coach. And so Nick Saban was head coach at Toledo for 1 year, and he calls me up. I got back from skiing in Seattle in March. He calls me up and says, "I'm going to go work for Bill Belichick for the Cleveland Browns. Can I get back that far. When, by the way, Belichick got fired there because he wasn't good enough. And he calls me up and says, I can get you an interview for this job. I'm going to leave. And I was fortunate. I got the job, and it was certainly something that, for me was, I had an opportunity and really enjoyed it. We had a good run there. Won a championship in 1995. I think we mentioned we beat Nevada in the Mid-American Conference Championship. Won 3 divisional championships after that. 1995. This is something that is interesting. You might win a couple bucks at a if this question ever comes up. But we played. The University of Toledo played Nevada, and they were going to use that bowl season for the new overtime, which is like Division I, which we do now, but it's been tweaked a little bit. And so that we were tied at the end of that game, and we did the first Division I college football overtime in the history of the Division I football, and we won the game, which is most important. But really a pretty cool deal as it turns out. That is in the College Football Hall of Fame too. So I thought that was pretty cool to be a part of something like that. And so I'm there, and I end up. Had a good run there in the Penn State, exactly. Coach Paterno, you got to understand that game. So they're a really good football team, and I thought we had a pretty good football team, but we're winning the game, by 20 points, and there's like 9 minutes left. And I'll be honest with you, if you see me on TV, I'll have a card and I'll write down stuff that I might know for the media. But what I did in this one? I put 9 slashes like this. And every one of those were meetings or minutes. No one knew this. So I'm kind of numb. I can't believe we're winning this football game, and I just want to mentally get through it without blowing up. And so a minute would go off the clock, I'd go and knock it off. Another minute went and I did it the whole way. Anyway, we won the game. After games like that, generally it was at their place. They generally come and pick you up, and your players pick you up and throw you all over the field and everything. It was that big of an upset. It was a national upset, and it was interesting because after the game, I'm looking around for my players, and they're all lined up, shaking hands with Coach Paterno. All of them. There was none around me. A couple coaches. So what I did? I got in line. And the ESPN was interviewing me in line behind all the players and everything. So that was quite a day. But that kind of got our program back on the map and had some interviews, different opportunities. And that's when I decided to go to Missouri. I can't tell you when Nick Saban called me up and I told him I was going to go to Missouri, what he said to me. It wasn't very nice. It was his opinion on me going there. He didn't think it was very good. They had 2 winning seasons in 17 years when I took over the job. And my friends, family, all my kids, they didn't want me to do it either, but at the end of the day, you have to do what your gut feeling. My gut feeling was I'd been at Toledo for 10 years. One of my goals was to have all 3 of my kids graduate from the same high school, and I accomplished that goal. So I was not going to move my kids in and out of high school, so I had several opportunities to leave when I was at Toledo, and I didn't do it, and I accomplished that goal. My son, the youngest, was a senior, and we finished the school the last 4 months there. I get hired in December, but he just finished that school then. So that was real important to me, and so that's what I did is my big thing is I wanted to make sure that it was the right thing, and I felt it was the right thing, so I did it. Mike Alden, who was our athletic director, was hugely important to me because I told him right when I took the job, I'm going to need you. When all of them are out there and they're going to be after me, I'm going to need you to stand up for me. And he did that. When you fire coaches year after year after year, guess what? It just gets worse and worse and worse. And you just can't build programs like that. And so fortunately, I had a good run. But you have to understand, you hear at a program with 2 winning seasons, 17 years. Another famous coach told me, a guy named Coach Lauderberg told me, when you go to Missouri, he told me right before I went, he said, remember this, they don't know that they don't know. Well, first of all, I couldn't comprehend what it meant. They don't know that they don't know. But when I got there, I found out because all those players are there. They all thought all these coaches have been getting fired all the years. We're great players. The coaches, you're awful. They don't know that they don't know. And so when you understand that perspective, it was a lot easier in trying to deal with it. But it was remarkably difficult. And I asked myself that several times as in the first 2 or 3 years, what the heck am I doing? Why am I going through this? But what we did is we built a program. It was, it's based on what we had to do is the only coach's retirement party I ever been to was mine. Okay, I've never been invited. You know why? Because most coaches don't ever retire; they get fired. 99% of us get fired, and I was ahead of that. What would happen down the road? Hopefully that wouldn't happen, but that's the way it is. But what we have to do is at Missouri, we felt we had to out-program people. We're not going to have better players all the time than them. So our program. So it's whether it's mental toughness or being more physical or more disciplined, or the preparation that you use. We call it 48-hour preparation. We play our players Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday is the final 48 hours. And what we do, and have the best player development program. That our program will make our guys stronger, faster, quicker, and so that's what the Don James way is. That's what Nick Saban's doing, a version of that at Alabama with the best players in the nation. That's why he's winning at the level that he's winning at. That's why he's doing things that nobody's ever done before, because he's got a program, a high-level infrastructure there that he's almost like every team's better than him. That's how he's going to run his program. Not like he's got the best players, if you know what I'm saying. When people wonder what's the edge there, and that's the edge for him. And so those are the things. So this is basically what we did real quick. Kent State. I play at Kent State, win a championship first time ever. Coach James takes that to Washington, 4 championships, national championship. Gary Pinkel gets a head job at Toledo. I take it there. We win a championship, 3 divisional championships. Then I picked that same program at the start when I played, the same infrastructure, okay, the design foundation, and I brought that thing and dropped it in Columbia, Missouri, and we were fortunate to win. We won 5 divisional championships, 3 Big 12, 2 SEC. The game we talked about against Texas, we win that. We're in the national championship game. 2 years ago in 2013, we win that game. We're in the national championship. Auburn went. We win that game. We're in there too. So we've been knocking at the door. So I'm leaving that for Barry Odom to do, our new coach. He can win those games there from that standpoint. Real quick, we're running out of time here. Let me just say, certainly, I really feel honored and that you would ask me to be here. And all kidding aside, I hope that this becomes one of the great rivalries in college football, because I think every school needs that. I know you're wanting to be lopsided in your favor. And I want it to be lopsided in our favor, okay? So long as we understand each other very clearly here as we're talking about. Just one thing real quick here, too. People ask me about the SEC and playing in it in the Big 12. It's just such a great league. And one of my goals is to make sure and understand that as you do have to do it at Arkansas, you have to do it everywhere in this league. You have to invest. You have to invest in your football program. And I mean facilities. You know what it's like. It's the best conference in the world, college football. But you have to invest, and that's something that I think we understand that all the way. It's interesting in this conference, different than any conference I've ever been or played or coached. I was in the Pac-10 for 12 years with Coach James. At the time it was the Pac-10. Is when you play non-conference games, you feel responsibility that you're representing the SEC. When you're playing a bowl game, you feel a responsibility you're representing the SEC. And no other league I ever felt that way in any way. We just did the best we can. This is all about, Missouri, or this is all about Washington or what have you. But there's a pride here, man. You're playing for the best league. And you saw the first games, everybody just had a chance. Boy, the SEC struggles one week, it's like bombs going off. And then all of a sudden they flip back over when things straighten out the next day. So I just think that's great, and it's neat that you're a part of it, and it's neat that we're a part of it. Talked to you about Nick Saban a little bit, and I call it the Saban rule. He's put a lot of pressure on a lot of coaches. He keeps winning the way he's winning, and their alumni are going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" We're paying a lot of money out there now, more than it's ever been. So it's really interesting how all that stuff came down. Just to wrap it up, you can ask any questions in a moment here. One thing I get people ask me the most proud about. I for 90% of my players graduated plus, probably between 93, 94, somewhere in there, graduated. Yeah, and those are true numbers, and that's we did it for 15 years, and we did it at a pretty high level. I'm proud that in the last 10 years, after we built our program, we're the 19th percentage-wise 19th winningest program in the country. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we've made those gains and we had some opportunities to win some championships. I always felt too that we always did the right thing, and sometimes the right thing probably lost a half a dozen games for me as a head football coach. It might have lost a championship for head coach, but I would not go away from what the right thing to do is, because that's the guy that taught me that at the end of the day, you do the right thing. You do the right thing. And it's pretty simple when you do that, that things will come out in the best. I love my players. I miss my players, hugely. But I also thank God. They paid me to coach football. And I loved what I did, and who could ask for anything more? So I appreciate you all being here. You have any questions or anything? Or
I get the first couple questions,
Okay.
Coach. Are you sure you're done with coaching? Would you ever come back? And number two, you had some really unique off-the-field issues with Michael Sam and last year with what happened on campus. Talk about what that was like to deal with.
Well, you never know the problems you're going to have, what you're going to do. First of all, no, I'm not going to coach anymore. Honestly, I was head coach 25 years. The average Division I's about 6.5 to 7. I've done it a lot. And I also look at the rat race that I led, so I don't want to do that. You never know. I talk about leadership and teamwork, and one of the rules I talk laws of leadership is, if you don't like to solve problems, don't be a leader. Okay? It's a problem-solving business. When you wake up every day, you're going to have problems. And I was a head coach at Toledo when I first got there. My coach quarterbacks at Washington. My players never got in trouble for anything. They did everything right. And then I come to head coach at Toledo, and I walk in the office every morning and whack, this guy did this, and this guy player. These problems were coming at me from all angles. And what I did was I just changed my attitude. I'm being honest with you. I woke up and I said, I'm not doing this every day. So I wake up in the morning and say, bring it on, man. Just bring it on to me. And so you're going to have problems, and you've got to learn to deal with them. And the Michael Sam situation was interesting because a couple of years before that happened, we knew that somewhere in the country, a player was going to come out and say that he was gay or male or female or what have you. We knew that was going to happen. And we were sitting around a bunch of guys, and I said, well, it's not going to happen to me. There's no way it can happen to me. But we had an infrastructure there. We talked about those things with our players, all our student athletes, and it was a really cool thing that we did. And so the other thing too is it was that happened in August, and this didn't happen until this was after the he was MVP in our bowl game, and he was MVP, defensive player MVP, a great kid, and I love him. And I remember being on Mike when he came out on that Sunday. I remember being on Mike and Mike the next morning, Good Morning America, and they all marveled at what. Not one player, with that phone, all the problems that those phones call, there are good things, those phones, but there's a lot of bad things. Not one player on our team said anything to anybody about that. Nobody did. And it was the most remarkable thing. That team also, was finished fourth in the nation. So, there was a very, very, very close team. And when I was on all these TV shows when that happened, the message was this, is that, they would ask me also. They would say, well, Gary, what's your thoughts and what's your views on this? And I said, it's not what my thoughts and views are. It gets back to where my mom and dad, the way they brought me up, that just because I disagree with them, or if you agree, whatever, if you do disagree, then, it doesn't matter. You treat people right. You're respectful to people. You have to agree with it. You be respectful. And I think that was the national message that came out of that. And I think a lot of people kind of dealt with that issue a little bit more. So I never talked about my personal opinion. I just told everybody that was the thing that I thought I saw the most. And I'm very, very proud of how we handled that. We had some issues on campus last year. Things happen. You have to deal with it. But at the end of the day, everything I do, I try to do it because it's the right thing to do. I go back to that all the time. It's the right thing to do. And for the most part, that's worked well for me most of my life.
Coach, talk about some of the players that played for you. Who were some of the better ones?
Well, I could talk a lot about that. But talk about players that played for me. We had Chase Daniel was a great quarterback out of Dallas, and he was an all-conference player here. He was a Heisman finalist. Not too many head coaches that get to go in a room with Heisman finalists and sit down there. I think Coach James ever did that. So I had one thing over him, Coach James, of all the things, that one thing. Jeremy Macklin was a great receiver for Kansas City Chiefs. Alden Smith, defense. We got a lot of defensive players playing in the NFL. We've had more defensive linemen drafted in the first round in the last 8 years than anybody in the country. And so, we have, I could go through a bunch of, I think we got 24 active players right now playing. I think when we got there, we had 4. So that's another real quick story. I'm doing all this stuff right, and I would call from Coach James in Seattle, and I said, Coach, I'm doing everything right. Everything you taught me, I'm doing everything right. And he didn't say anything, which is typical. So 2-3 holes later, he looks over at me, he says, Gary, I've been thinking about what you've been saying. He said, when you start getting more players drafted, you'll start winning more football games. And the point was, you can do everything right, but if you don't recruit and develop talent, you're not going to win any games. And as soon as that happened, we started winning more games, and that's how it went. Yes, sir.
Did you ever get offered the Washington job after all the turnover after Don James? And also, I read the book of his Thursday speeches. Could you elaborate?
Oh, Coach James. I was going to a final interview, and I withdrawed in 2008 to be the next head coach at Washington. I was supposed to meet a bunch of these people. I did the same thing with Michigan in 2010. And I just didn't want to move my family. All my family finally got him in Missouri, and all of a sudden now I'm taking off on him. That's what I did that for, and that's kind of the way that whole thing worked out. Your other question, what was your other? Oh, the Thursday speeches. I mentioned a little while in here 48 hours. I remember I said you prepare every day and said it's the final 48 hours. We had a meeting on Thursday, and a lot of other people had their meeting with their team on Friday. Well, we always had it on Thursday because Coach James wanted the preparation to be longer than other people. So we're going to be 48 hours preparation, other people 24 hours. You kind of see what I'm saying? It's a little bit mental, but it also, if you utilize it, it works. And Coach James had Thursday speeches. And Chris Tormey's brother, forget his name, he wrote, I think he sat down with Coach James and just talked about all these speeches Thursday. Now I got 25 years of Thursday speeches on file. 25 years of my Thursday talks to my team. This is where I started. I said the last 3 years, I started talking about values, how to treat women, all the different types of things that you try to make my kids, a lot of stuff isn't taught anymore. Kids don't teach those things. That's the Thursday meeting I started doing the last 3 years. I spent 10 minutes on that. Then I spent 10 minutes on the meeting for the team we're going to play because it was the right thing to do. But it's really cool. You go back and read. I was not mentioned much in it, but I relived all those games because he sent a copy of it to me, and it was pretty cool. So I might have to do a book called 25 Years of Thursday Speeches. But Coach James' speeches were better than mine. That'll never change, okay? So you know that. So good. Hey, listen, thanks so much. God bless you. Go Mizzou and go Arkansas.
Gary Pinkel, everybody. Thank you, Coach. Brian Bosworth next week. We'll see you next Monday. Thanks for being here, everybody.